And we're back with our politics lead. Donald Trump's surprise, dare we say, shocking announcement late this afternoon that he would like Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz to be the U.S. Attorney General. Let's get right into it with my own colleagues. Let's start with you, Evan Perez. You have some breaking details you've uncovered. You have learned that if Gaetz does in fact get to be the U.S. Attorney General, whether through confirmation or bypassing the confirmation process through a recess appointment, he will be in control of the criminal files and evidence related to the investigation against him.
Right, exactly. And I mean, look, there's a voluminous file there which includes witness statements from these young women who were witnesses in this investigation, the sex trafficking investigation. And one of the things that the Justice Department has done is that they've withheld this information from the House Ethics Committee, which has been investigating. And one of the reasons why is they say that this is very sensitive stuff. It has details of these young women, and they just didn't want to hand it over to the Ethics Committee. So one of the things that we'll be watching for is what happens to those files, right? Gaetz would now be in charge of this and could do whatever he wants. I mean, you know, we've FOIA'd those documents as well. And so the question is, what happens to those documents if he becomes Attorney General?
Audie, Gaetz has been a fierce critic of the Justice Department, taking on the FBI even during an oversight hearing a few years ago. Take a listen.
People trusted the FBI more when J. Edgar Hoover was running the place than when you are. And the reason is because you don't give straight answers.
We are learning also that the Justice Department was shocked at the announcement. What do you make of it? Do you think that he'll be able to lead the Justice Department if he gets in there?
We're not there yet. And one thing about a nomination like this is if you use the word shocked right away, it's hard to go any further up from there. And we're really only at the start of this administration. The Attorney General's office often is the shield of defense against multi-state legal actions. And during the Trump administration 45, there were something like 90 successful lawsuits that states, Democratic AGs, were able to file against the government. So I'd like to know who else was on the list, given how many lawyers Donald Trump actually knows. And I'd like to know if this is something that they basically float as a lightning rod to attract all of the brutal attention.
Why did he pick Gaetz? What are your sources telling you? I mean, from the outside, it looks like fierce loyalist, good on TV, you know, and
Florida man.
What?
Florida
man. And then also just that he has been pursued by Justice Department officials and the House Ethics Committee, and Donald Trump has, in his own way, also been pursued by law enforcement.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that, and we've talked about this a lot, is that for Donald Trump, this is the most important position of his administration. And he had a short list. We know that. We know that he had been going through it. He'd met with a number of people on it. But there were a lot of boxes that he wanted checked. And clearly no one that was on that short list that we had been talking about, that we had been talking to sources about, many people who were working with the Justice Transition Team who were giving us those names, they were surprised by Matt Gaetz. None of the people on that short list clearly checked the boxes that Donald Trump was looking for. And what Donald Trump was looking for is not just somebody who was going to be a fierce loyalist and somebody who had been a fierce loyalist, which we know Matt Gaetz was, but it was going to be somebody who was going to go along with what exactly Trump wanted. And the other thing to note here is that people who know Matt Gaetz and they know the kind of lawyer that he could be and have worked with him believe that he is competent and incredibly smart. And this role is going to need somebody smart who can go around the traditional norms and laws and different things that are in place.
And the lawsuits that
follow.
And
lawsuits, exactly, in order to navigate a Justice Department that Donald Trump wants. What Donald Trump wants is a Justice Department in which he has full control over. So he needs not someone who's just a loyalist, but someone who knows how to work the system, smart enough to work the system, and is going to be essentially a right hand to what Donald Trump wants to use the Justice Department for.
He also wants to blow the place up. Let's be honest. That's really what he wants. I mean,
figuratively, we should.
Right. I mean, he wants, and he wants. And by the way, the other one that we're waiting for is the FBI director, and that's also what he wants to do because he believes
that could be somebody like Kash Patel, another loyalist,
right, who has been on the list.
When you hear Donald Trump and his allies talk about the deep state, they're talking about the Justice Department.
Right.
That's what they're talking about, and they're talking about getting rid of the deep state, draining the swamp. It's all about the Justice Department, and Matt Gaetz is going to now lead that charge.
So Trump says that this will help restore trust in the Justice Department. You don't have to be a blind follower of Donald Trump to look at the Justice Department in general, whether it's back to the J. Edgar Hoover years that Matt Gaetz was referring to, or even James Comey, any of the questions. There was that Peter Strzok and
Page.
Lisa Page, and think, you know what? Maybe sometimes they did get ahead of their skis, and maybe sometimes there were some of those FOIA violations with Carter Page. You don't have to be a Republican to look at that and think there's stuff that they need to clean house about. But my question is, will this move help them restore that trust?
It will smoke out the people who have questions about their goals.
Explain. What do you mean?
Well, it means that if you're feeling like you don't want to go along with this plan, if you don't meet the metrics for loyalty, hearing a name like this will probably send you packing. I mean, there are people who may decide they don't want to go along with this version of the administration.
All right. Thanks to all of you. A reminder, Audie has a great podcast. It's called The Assignment with Audie Cornish. A new episode drops tomorrow. And can I tell them what it's about or no?
No, let's
No, I'm not
just
going to. Okay.
download